Hello dear learners and viewers. Topic for today's session is role of stakeholders in policy making, political parties, mass media and interest group part 1. We shall be discussing this topic under following heads. Introduction, political parties, meaning and importance, essentials of a political party, political parties and policy making, various political parties and policy making in India, role of media in policy making, free and independent media, and conclusion. Introduction. A democratic constitution provides for a representative and responsible system of government. Concepts of responsibility and representation are woven into the fabric of a modern democracy. It is through this system that public demands are articulated, synchronized and converted into public policies. In a democratic setup, the government not only frames policies on its own, but also responds to the various demands made by different organized groups and political and social institutions in the society, like political parties, interest groups and mass media. Political parties initiate a process of opinion formation on various issues and merge the opinions with varying degrees of success into some alternative policies. Students, democracy postulates elections, and elections cannot be possible until and unless all the individuals they unite themselves according to some particular views into a group of a common for achievement of a common goal and objective, and those goals and objectives they aspire to achieve by controlling the government and making policies for the public. Through these policies, but political parties aspire to work for the people and for the welfare of the country and the population. Political parties, meaning and importance. A political party in the modern sense may be thought of as a relatively durable social formation which seeks office of power in government, exhibits a structure of organization which links leader at the center of government to a significant popular following in the political area and its local enclaves, and generates in group perspective or at least symbols of identification of loyalty. According to Edmund Burke, a political party is a body of men united for promoting the national interest on some particular principles on which they are all agreed. According to Gettle, a political party consists of a group of citizens more or less organized who acts as a political unit and who by the use of their voting power aim to control the government and carry out their general policies. Students, a political party is a group of individuals often having some measure of ideological agreement among themselves who organize themselves together to win elections, operate the government, held the control of the government and determine the public policy formulation for the people of the country. It is a body of persons united for promoting national interest on some particular principles on which they all agree and have a common goal for achievement. Essentials of a political party. Members must be organized, must have some degree of permanency, must have definite aims and objectives. Members must have the same views on important public matters. Members must work for national interest and not sectional interest. Must aim at capturing power by peaceful and constitutional means. Students, there are certain essentials of a political party. First of all, the members of the political party should be well organized. That is, there should be a proper organization. It is impossible to think of a political party without an organization. that is, political party is the organized association of individuals held together. Next, they should have some degree of permanency, that is, existing continually and achieving and working towards the achievement of their goal and objective. Next, that is, they must have some definite aims and objectives which they strive to achieve and work for. Next, members must have some same important views on all public matters, that is, they should have a unanimity amongst the views on all public matters, on all public policies to be framed and drafted. Next, members must work for national interest and not for their private interest, that is, members of the political parties, all the members should work for the national interest of the country, national interest of the state, and not for the sectional or private individual interests. Next, they should aim at capturing the power through peaceful and constitutional means. Students, main aim of a political party, of an organized political institution or party in a country is to capture the power, that is, to form the government. That it is through this only they will be able to work for the people and will be able to form policy formulation for the people. And this should be done through peaceful and constitutional means. Political parties and policy making. Political parties are also categorized as unofficial actors which perform the important functions in the policy making process. They are means of enhancing the effect of public opinion. Like pressure group, they serve as intermediate between citizens and policy makers. Party platforms on which elections are fought form a basis of the party leadership when, as a government, it engages in the making of a public policy. Political parties are regarded as important agents for establishing popular control over government and public policies. They play an important role in reflecting the issues at stake and in setting value goals for the society. Now, students, next is the role played by political parties in the policy making. We see that political parties initiate a process of opinion formation amongst the population on various issues in the society and in the community. And on the basis of this opinion formation, they translate this into alternative policies for the people. They operate in order to gain control of the government and enact their party program into laws when they secure or a seat in the government. They act as a linking pin between the government and the electorate as they reflect the issues at stake and turn them into policies for the public at large. In appraising the role of parties in policy making, three things have to be kept in view. These are ideological stances, organizational structures, and leadership. Ideological stances. In recent years, a number of scholars have devoted considerable attention to the role of party ideology in shaping government policies. In policies and programs, parties actually unite sectional interest, as no party in a modern system of representative democracy can form a government by mobilizing the support of one specific interest or section. Every party is obliged to the electorate beyond one or two specific sectional interests. At the same time, it is difficult for a serious party to surrender completely its ideological stances. Within the broad ideological framework, a party makes compromises to come to terms with reality. Now, students, while assessing the role of political parties in the public policy formulation, we have to keep three things in mind. First of all, the ideological stances of a political party, organizational structures of the political party, and the leadership in the political party. Now, first is ideological stances. Students, a political party is held primarily together by its ideology. Ideology plays an important role in the policy formulation of a particular political party. That is, on the basis of the ideologies, parties formulate their policies, and on this basis of ideology, we can categorize parties, political parties, as liberal, as conservative, as radical, as leftist, as rightist political parties. For instance, we can say that BJP in India is a rightist political party with Hinduism as dominant ideology, which aspire to influence national policies through mobilized Hindu nationalism. Organizational structures. The present day parties are distinguished less by their programs or the class background of their members than by the nature of their organization. Most of the modern political parties operating in a democratic system are branch parties having a centralized party structure, with its basic units being distributed geographically in space. Delegates are elected by the branches and the regions to a central body which represents the highest policy making body. However, within each party there is a caucus whose members are influentials and elites. In this connection, it is important to note that sometimes party organization fall victim to what is called as iron law of oligarchy. Now students, the organizational structure of a political party is another important thing to be kept in mind while evaluating the role of a political party in the public policy formulation. Organizational structures of a political party conditions the role of a political party in making a public policy to a great extent. In this connection, it is important to note that sometimes political parties also fall victim to what is known as the iron law of oligarchy. Regardless of how democratically a political party may be in the starting, it may eventually develop some oligarchic tendencies, that is, few persons in a political party tend to control the whole structure of the political party or dominate that particular party, and that is very important because it influences the public policy formulation. Leadership. Party leaders who hold positions of authority within the organization are not controlled by the individuals holding subsidiary positions in the organization. That is, the power of leadership and within that of the leader himself is of paramount importance. It is found that policy changes are initiated by the party leadership and the party leaders owe their position to the rank and file selectors. In this way, latter makes a substantial contribution to the policy choice, even though general picture which emerge is one of the leadership dominance. The choice of policies can also be influenced by existing control over party offices. It is found that party leaders themselves keep a firm grip on party offices. Now students, another important aspect to be kept in view is while evaluating the role of political party in public policy formulation is the leadership in the political party. And as we know that important factor of government policy is party policy. It is therefore important to know that distribution of power in political parties in order to understand the process or the forces which shape the policy formulation. The leader of the political party exercises the power of appointment which enable him to control the party organization. Thus, within the parliamentary party, the leader exercises the immense influence over policy choices, especially when in office, of deciding the public policy formulation. Various political parties and policy making in India. As we know that myriad of interest exists in India, principle being the caste, which is alien to the Western world. Indian parties do not perform the aggregator role as neatly as done by their Western counterparts. party system in India reflects the forces of both fusion and fission. Both these forces contribute to the public policy making process. Among all political parties in India, the Congress performed mostly the aggregative functions for several years, but its character got enormously diluted in the course of its governance in the post-independence India. The BJP is a cadre-based party and its organizational discipline lies in ideological cohesion. It believes in the unity of the country through an assertion of the dominant Hindu culture. The Communist Party of India is the single most powerful among the leftist party. This party insists that economic development and management should receive priority in public policy making. Then there are regional parties which seek to regionalize the public policy issues. They represent aspirations and demands of the locally dominant caste and newly mobilized political aspiring community. The evolution of India's political economy seems to have created a situation where several earlier axioms and assumptions have been rendered obsolete. Now students, regarding the role of political parties in policy making in India is concerned, we see that it reflects a system of fission as well as fusion in the Indian political scene. That is, both these forces combined together in the public policy making process in the country. The result is that aggregation of interest is not done through the party system in the area of public policies, and of late we see that with the emergence of the coalition politics and coalition governments and coalition party governments in the country, different sections in the country, the policies and programs of the different sections of the society have to be taken together while deciding the policy formulation or making the policies in the country. Thus students, we see that there are different political parties in our country and they have their own role in the policy formulation. For example, BJP, which is a Hindu dominant party, and its policy formulation is derived from the Hindu dominant culture. Similarly, there are communist parties whose main aim behind the policy formulation is the economic determinism. Then we have regional political parties in the country who strive for the regionalization of all public policy issues, and they represent the demands of the locally dominant people, locally dominant population and newly aspiring community in the country. Thus, we see that the political economy of the country and the political scene of the country is totally different. We have coalitions in the country and the public policy formulation depends on this in the country. Thus students, we see that political parties are important organs of the machinery for public policy formulation in the country. At the eve of elections, political parties present their goals, programs and values to the people with a view to gaining their support, and on the basis of this they make the policy formulation. That is, we can say that the manifestos of the political parties are informal source of public policy formulation. Now next we will come over to the role of mass media in policy formulation. Role of mass media in policy making. Mass media serves a number of functions within context of government policy making. Through media, people are able to get informed and be updated about what is happening around them and the world and make judgments regarding various issues. All categories of media, whether print, electronic or new age digital social media, play an integral role in shaping the social context in which policies are developed. Through media, citizens learn how government policies will affect them, and governments gain feedback on their policies and programs. Media system acts as the primary channel between those who might want to influence policy and the policy makers controlling the scope of political discourse and regulating the flow of information. Now students, next is the role of mass media in policy making. As we all know that a prerequisite for modern democracy is free mass media, which plays an important role in the modern political system. Today, media is regarded as the fourth branch of the government, that is fourth organ of the government, other three being legislature, executive and judiciary. The media channels information between the public and the policy actors who are responsible for making the policies. They communicate the information between the public and the government. Media acts as one of the important source of information for the governments on public's reaction to the policies, on public's reaction to the various issues happening in the country, on the various issues, contemporary issues to be dealt with. That is, media can draw and sustain the public attention towards all the challenges, all the requirements in a nation. Media is responsible for public policy formulation, that is, it helps in public policy formulation by initiating a dialogue, a rhetoric between the people and the policy and the government which is responsible for the policy formulation. Policy making process has been divided into following three stages: problem identification, agenda setting and policy formulation. Problem identification stage. The media plays an important role in problem identification stage. The nature of media is to report things to the public. Reporters tend to report to the public all the happenings in the community. In this way, the media will be doing problem identification. Media's daily or weekly reportage is crucial because when the media begins reporting on the issues of importance to the public, policy makers tend to start listening. Thus, through the reportage, they frame policy issues or suggest changes on the existing ones. And now students, as we know that policy making process has to pass through the three stages. That is, first of all, there is problem identification, for which a particular policy has to be made, then agenda setting and lastly policy formulation. Now students, mass media plays a very important role in the first stage, that is problem identification, for which a particular policy has to be made. Reporting done through the media, done by the media, that is the hard news, which hard news brings to the light the various problems faced by the society, faced by the issues faced by the public at large, and through them policy makers or actors get to know on what issues have to be covered and what issues have to be public policies be framed or drafted. That is, media is responsible for the identification of the problems on which public policies are to be formulated. Agenda setting. Media can influence agenda setting in policy making. Through media, individual politicians or policy makers can change their mind towards a certain problem. Media puts pressure to policy actors when discussing certain policy agenda in political stream. The media used to play a very crucial role in setting policy agenda because they become a link between the public policy actors and politicians. In this way, media gives feedback to the public what policy actors are about to do on the proposed policy agenda. Now students, media also influences the agenda setting for a public policy formulation. that is media sets the ball rolling. It influences the policy formulation by deciding, by debating, discussing on the agendas, on the requirements of the public on which the policy formulation has to be done by the government. It is media is responsible for discussing certain policy agenda. In political stream, media used to play a very crucial role in setting policy agenda because they act as a linking pin between the public and policy actors and the politicians who are in the government and responsible for the policy formulation for the people at large. Policy formulation stage. This is the stage in which policymakers decide what to do about the things on the agenda. The media's role in this stage is very important, as during this stage the policymakers try to appeal to the people through the medium of the media. Politicians tell the media their ideas for a certain policy and then the media reports it to the people. During this stage of process, the media is also busy researching the intricacies of policies put forth by policy makers. The members of media report these findings in a way that public can understand what is going on. This is an area where investigative journalism is also very crucial. The adoption stage of policy making process happens in the legislature and determine what will happen to proposed policy. Naturally, what happens to policy is greatly determined by what kind of media coverage it has generated. If a proposed policy generates a positive and steady publicity, there is a good chance that policy will be enacted. Now students, media plays a very important role in the policy formulation stage also. This is a stage in which policymakers decide what to do about a particular policy agenda. The media's role in this stage is very important. Here, media happens to publicly publicize the policies which greatly determine the course of the action by the government. Now, it depends, the policy formulation depends upon the media coverage provided to that particular problem by the mass media in general. That is, if it gets a wide coverage and it is acceptable to the people, there is a good chance that that policy will be adopted by the government. For instance, we see that Indian Parliament enacted Criminal Law Amendment Bill in 2013, which was brought against the backdrop of the national outrage over the gang rape and murder of a physiotherapist student in New Delhi in 2012. And by amplifying and by insisting the role of public and by giving it a wide range of coverage, the media made a pressure on the policy makers who otherwise might have not listened to the people or public. So, it was the media which was responsible for which forced and which was responsible for the amendment of that particular bill by the policy makers. Free and independent media. Since media are acting channels of communication, it is important to determine whether they are politically biased in their presentation of information. If they are biased in the way they present decisions and actions of government to the public or public opinion to the government, they may distort the very concept of democracy. If the citizen is to make rational decisions about public policy, the media should be of high standard of reliability. When the media can influence opinion in a situation where the government is seen to be responsive and responsible to the public, then they are correspondingly influential in determining of policy. Now students, a very important prerequisite for media to be helpful in public policy formulation is its free and independent. That is, media should be free of any pressure and it should be unbiased. Otherwise, it will be distorting the views and it will be misinterpreting the views and it will not represent the correct information both to the policy makers as well as to the public. So, students, media should be free and unbiased. It should not distort the information on both the ways. Conclusion. Conclusively, it is now obvious that political parties and mass media play an important role in policy making. Political parties create, organize and disseminate public opinion and therefore constitute the backbone of a democratic order. It is important to note that role of media is key not just at the beginning but throughout the policy process, and also media can not only act as external player in policy process but as a key player. We have also highlighted how public media can be seen not a reliable source or actor in policy process because of biasness and lack of independence. To conclude, students, we can say that political parties and mass media both are the key players in the policy formulation and both have an important role in the public policy making. That is, they have a very important role and they are important stakeholders in the policy making. Democracy without political parties cannot function at all. It is just like a ship without captain or a boat without rudder. Similarly, mass media, which is also now regarded as the fourth organ of the government, is very important for a public policy formulation, and it should be free and unbiased media which is very helpful in the public policy formulation. So, students, with this we come to the end of today's lecture. We have discussed today the role of political parties and mass media in the public policy formulation, how political parties affect policy formulation, their ideological stances, their organizational structures, they affect the policy formulation, and the free and independent media, how it helps in the public policy making. Thank you.